8. That's exactly how many times.
She is the flight time.
So are we ready? Megan and I are meeting this is my first, so I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call. So if you would introduce yourself.
Katie Porter.
Yes, recorder of deeds. I'm here.
Megan Thompson. County Clerk, I'm here. Dan White. Paul Vescovo. Jerry Nolte.
Presiding Commissioner here.
Lee Ridgway. Gene Owen.
Here.
Lydia McAvoy.
Collector here.
Ted Graves.
Treasurer here.
Kathy Reinhardt. Carolyn Castle. Ted Boone. Ellen Fisher.
The first order of business is to elect a chair, so I would like to open the floor for nominations.
I would nominate Debbie Green.
I would second that. If she wants it.
We have a nomination and a second for Debbie Quinn.
Well, do you want it?
I don't want to take that one over. I don't want
Okay. Well, I withdraw my second because I don't want to make you use it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll reopen the floor for a different nomination.
I would nominate Ted Graves.
Ted Graves has been nominated. Do we have a second? We have a second.
Is there roll call now?
We have discussion or just, I mean, we don't need to have discussion, but I mean, however we want to work, I just was throwing it out there.
Madam Chair. Traditionally, we've had someone that's not on the ballot for that section be the,
Right, that's what,
yeah.
it's on the ballot. I'm on the ballot.
Yes.
That's what they do.
Ted's on the ballot.
Yes.
Kathy
did.
the sheriff didn't show up.
That's right.
Well, they don't.
But their salaries are not,
Right, there's that statute.
yeah, they're not discussed by this board, so.
Well, and what you're saying,
So
even
it's-
office holders whose, like, my salary is not up for discussion, I don't want to be the chair, but I'm just saying, if it were somebody whose salary is not being set right now, that might be.
So it's traditional but not illegal.
That would be correct. Yeah.
Would you be willing to stay as chair? We've never had this, can you do that?
I don't think you can. I think it's next round.
Yeah,
He's just supposed to call the meeting to order, and that's the leftover from the statute.
He's got the easy part. He gets to run.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets to run.
He's just gotta wait for us to
Along
make a
with the
decision on
prosecutor
it.
and
Well,
I
should we
couldn't
vote
quite
on
hear-
this?
I couldn't quite hear down here. Was there some discussion, just to hear, were you guys talking about waiting for the prosecutor and the sheriff, or?
We
don't know if that's gonna
They don't.
After the last one, on record, they probably don't. I have an idea for another nomination then, but as a point of order, do we need to vote since there was a second?
Should we?
Or you can withdraw. I mean,
Yes,
That's right here.
he was supposed to be there. Well, I guess the other issue is Debbie said she did not want to serve, so that's why we removed that. Ted.
Ted
wanted to serve.
Everybody wants to do it.
I don't. No, I'm on record. You know, because we all have some
No.
interest.
No, there was nothing,
Recess until we can find out council.
there is nothing prohibitive about it in the statutes. It's just a matter of if he wants to serve, we have a motion. He doesn't decline as Debbie did.
You know what, I would think, sorry, consider that, yeah, if you want to vote, if you just want to abstain, I don't see how there would be any issue with who chairs it. If they don't vote on any issue, like that would be giving them the right to vote, so you may not know that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, could you explain that a little more for me?
Well, I think the issue was whether or not it was appropriate for an elected official to actually run the meeting, because they would actually be voting on their own salaries like everybody else. But for some reason, someone's concerned about needing the chair to do that. And I said he could just abstain from voting if that's what he wanted to do. If he
So-
felt comfortable voting as the chair, which I really don't see what difference it makes whether you're the chair or not. I mean,
It doesn't, because Debbie gets to vote even though it's her.
Because if I understand correctly, none of the actions we take affects any of us until another election is lapsed.
Correct.
correct.
So really, it's, we're not voting on our own, which is the whole point of the exercise, is that we not vote on our own specific salaries until we stood for election at least one more time.
Let's see how it's that big a deal.
I don't see it
Because I
either.
don't know if it was that big a deal, it would require the sheriff or the prosecutor or some other persons.
I mean, the prosecutor always seems like the natural choice because their salary is not attached to the actions of this body.
Anyone have a question? Okay. I'm not sure what that means, but.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble
Stop
hearing.
talking about it.
Yeah, no, I'm not asking, I was not asking, I did want to ask because I couldn't hear what you say, but I'm asking because I would like you to speak more loudly because I can't hear any of what you're saying down there.
Okay.
And I do need.
That is a no question.
Exactly, I renewed sympathy, but yeah, I assume that's what she was asking, but I wanted to also.
So she has called for the question, which means that discussion should cease and we should call the roll.
Okay. Yes, here.
Okay? Is that correct? Call for the
Yeah.
question means.
It's a privileged motion, yeah.
All right. Lydia called for the question.
The motion is appointing Ted Graves as chairperson of the salary commission.
Yes.
You made the motion, so.
Well, he made the motion and he seconded it, but yes.
Okay, so, as Ted Graves as our chair, seconded by, Owen, nominated by Jerry. Any discussion? No? We're all good? Okay. Katie Porter?
Yes.
Nate Thompson? Yes. Dan White? Paul Vascova? Al Multi?
Yes.
Louis Ridgway?
Yes.
Gina Owen?
Yep.
Lydia McAvoy?
Yes.
Ted Graves?
Yes.
Carol McCaslin? Yes. Kathy Reinhardt? Cindy Flynn?
Yes.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
No name, right? So Ted Graves is our chair.
That's right. We go now? Go ahead. The first,
Your portion is done.
Yes.
Thank you. Good to meet you.
Excellent.
It was nice not going to meeting, but.
Did you get, we sent you?
I did.
Well, this being the second meeting here, we first off for a little input, the salary commission obviously is to deal with salaries. Are we going to separate them out into elected official salaries and employee salaries? Is that a separate thing that we need to do, or is this all employees?
No, that would be, what we're dealing with is only the salaries of elected officials, the salaries of other employees can be dealt with during the budget process.
Correct, and we're only talking about the warrants for the next term of office, those will be elected in 2016.
actually, before we deal with those, I have another order of business that I think we should resolve before we move forward, because in my opinion, currently, I was on the prior salary commission in 2013, and the duly passed motion of that legally paneled salary commission is currently not being honored by the payroll department, and so I would like to get that issue clarified before we move forward, because really, although those salaries are not at issue now, we do try in some way to contemplate the future effects of our actions and try to keep consistency as much as we can, so unless that's resolved, it kind of puts a hitch in things. I have a motion, but I'm more than willing to entertain discussion and change it as necessary afterwards. It's just the general idea that the payroll department of Clay County is hereby directed to implement the approved motions of the 2013 salary commission, to wit, that all office holders taking office in 2015 were to be given an increase in base salary equal to the COLAs paid to county employees during the budget years of January 1 through December 31st, 2013, and January 1 through December 31st, 2014. To date, only part of the 2014 COLAs have been paid to the office holders that took office in 2015, and this should be immediately corrected. Because this order of the current salary commission merely restates a previous order of a duly impaneled salary commission, and to avoid a midterm pay increase, the 2014 increase referenced in this motion shall be clearly made retroactive to the beginning of each affected office holder's current term of office, less any amounts already paid. What I'm just basically trying to say is that we voted for the 2014 COLA, and admittedly, it didn't happen in a really smooth manner, and so there's nothing, wrong with the fact that there's been some confusion about that, and then it got put on hold, waiting for a legal opinion. Do we have that legal opinion? If we do not have that legal opinion, it would be incumbent on this salary commission to clarify that issue before we move forward, since this is our only opportunity to discuss the matter and legally make a motion regarding it.
Well, that was my main question, is what was the reason that it was not implemented? Was there a procedural reason? Was there, do we know why?
I can jump in if everyone's willing.
Was this even appropriate to be discussing?
Well,
this?
I think we were way outside of the salary commission is embodied for a very short period of time, essentially 45 to 60 days leading up to December 15th each calendar year. Each salary commission is its own body, is its own, I don't want to say elected body, but it is a body, a corporate body, a governmental body, completely separate. I think it is way outside the bounds of the 2015 salary commission to discuss what the 2013 salary commission did, because the 2013 salary commission was a completely different body, and it is terminated, it doesn't exist anymore, and I think it would be a bad choice for members of the 2015 salary commission to want to discuss the current salary within the framework of the salary commission. I guess
Well, then with all due respect, what is the remedy? And a motion was passed, and simply by fiat, it is not being followed.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a point of order that I think is probably not within the purview of this body. While I think it's a healthy discussion that should be had, since it is beyond the authority of this body to address that issue, I think we should confine ourselves to the issue at hand. Furthermore, I would say that since it was the previous salary commission was brought up, not to revisit necessarily the issues, but to revisit the process, which I think would be valid for what we're talking about. The process last time was, I think, to put it kindly, flawed. I think for us to revisit and to redo that same process for this particular meeting is ill-advised. My suggestion would be that we deal with the matter at hand, and the rest is being adjudicated or gone through in one way or another. The process has gone through, but we are not a competent body to deal with that. So I
Well,
suggest
with all due respect, Mr. Chair, I'm not comfortable making another motion this year without understanding why last time's motion is not being respected, because we do want to get it right. You're exactly right. So we made a motion, it was in writing, it was voted, and it's not being
that
followed.
is not, but the thing is, whether the last salary commission did a good job or a poor job, whatever the state of that particular outcome was, does not relieve us of the responsibility to meet and decide in this particular body on this particular issue.
Right, and we need to determine how to do that more effectively this time.
I would suggest that what we do is we do something somewhat less convoluted than the last. I suggest that we would do something much simpler, much more easy to understand, because my concern is looking at it from the outside during the last one, it certainly appeared to be a process that was designed to be confusing. And certainly as someone who's observing it from outside of that particular body, I think we need to, when we conduct this particular commission meeting, I believe we need to be much more transparent, much more simple, much more streamlined, and so that the public can indeed understand readily how it is we're disposing of the tax money we're investing.
Well, despite the fact that, yes, we got embroiled in hours and hours of legal counsel that we then, for some reason, did not implement last time, if the motions of this commission are not going to be respected, then we need to deal with that before we make more motions. I do want to be clear. and
Yes,
transparent.
but the motions you're
But
referring
they're
to were not the
followed.
motions you're talking to, while made by a similar body, were not made by this body. And we did have.
So we want to get it right this time. So we need understanding from county council what needs to be done differently this time. You know, and where are we at on the previous meeting?
Once again, that's,
No.
I would appeal to the chair that that is not, that the discussion is not in order for this.
Well, I disagree, and we're equal members of this commission.
Well, perhaps we need to, is there?
Mr. Chair, you decide now.
Well,
Actually-
my only concern is what we do here today, is that impacted by what was or was not done in 2013?
It can't be because it's the 2014, and that would be within this term that we're looking at. So if you're not going to call that COLA from 2014 germane to the last set of office holders, then should it be germane to the next set of office holders? So it is a cumulative thing. So I think it does have some value, at least to come to the conclusion. And the other issue is, if that was the vote of the last salary commission, albeit I was not here, if it was not enacted by the payroll department, what kind of guarantee do we have that whatever decision we have today will be enacted in the future in 2016 as well?
Mr. Chairman, if I can be recognized, to speak on a point of order, that I think Porter may have initially raised the point of order, and it was reiterated by Commissioner Nolte. We have a very specific boundary around which the statutes place us to make a determination. And it has to do with these 2 years. Now, we could speculate probably for days, hours, weeks, or months over what happened and how that will be interpreted. It may ultimately have to be decided by a court of competent jurisdiction. But one thing I do know is we're way outside the statutory boundaries of the salary commission to discuss anything other than what the law gives us the authority to determine. The law says that we have to meet to determine what will be 2015 and 2016 salary adjustments, if any. And I'm prepared to discuss that, but I don't think that we can settle anything having to do with actual numbers or anything like that today. And furthermore, any council has not been authorized with regard to the salary commission that I'm aware of. There's council that advises the commission, there's council that advises other office holders. But to my knowledge, there has not been an attorney retained to advise the salary commission on these matters. And as a result, we could be waiting forever.
So we could end up doing what we did last time, which was bring in special counsel who spoke to us for hours. At the conclusion of his comments, I made a motion to implement his legal recommendation, and it was voted down. And that is what happened last time. And that's why I would tend to agree in one aspect with what Commissioner Ridgway just said, that we are at an impasse to act in this commission because of what happened last time. We don't know what the effect of what we're doing is going to have, because we thought we did last time. We made it, we thought, you know, I understand it ended up being several meetings and all of that, all of which were public, all of, you know, but the point is, when we acted, and we acted unclearly, we acted in a way that is not being implemented by well-meaning people. So we need to understand how to do it better if we want to do it better. And I don't know if that means, I'm not saying we're going back and changing those things, but, you know, we're just going to do it again if we don't
Correct,
do it right.
because in 2003, the same thing happened. And that's why the salaries are so uneven. It happened in 2003.
Okay.
Excuse me, point of order, would it not be good for us to have a distribution of the agenda so we are
Sorry,
a little more
I just
structured?
need to-
I think that might be a good place for us to hold for a moment and have our agenda before us. In fact, well, it's up to the chair. but
Yeah, I was just saying, we need some copies.
I can make this real quick, we can't, we're just like wild westing this. I move that we don't take any raises for the next 2 years and call that for a vote.
There's a motion on the table.
There's
a motion on the table.
What was the motion on the table?
Well, I made my motion to direct implementation of the prior, but if it's, I
If
mean,
it's out of.
If it's
out
out of order,
then
then
we
we-
have, yeah, vote on
Well,
I'd like to say something. Let's move
it.
right
Why not, everybody else is, let's go.
First of all, this, ever since the salary commission came to the legislature, it has been, in Clay County, it has become a political football. It's terrible. And, you know, many times over the years, the salary commission was used to punish certain elected officials. We in Clay County, all the elected officials in Clay County, when you compare Clay County to other first-class counties in the state of Missouri, we're probably at the bottom of the list. So I think what needs to be done is to take an average on how many first-class counties are there? 7? 6? Whatever.
More than that, but yeah.
You know, to get them out of the political arena to vote for a COLA or something, why can't Clay County be brought up to other counties, first-class counties in the state of Missouri? Even if they put it at the bottom, you know, the bottom of all first-class counties in the state of Missouri. What every elected official makes in these other counties, put us at the bottom. Bring us up to 2015. This is ridiculous. It has become too political. It's ridiculous.
that's what we started.
We're gonna run for the office. I mean, it's
Yeah,
probably
you-
part of your pay.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Are we discussing Lydia's motion, or Mr. Chairman, where are we at on that?
Right now, let's kind of get back online here. Election of chairperson, we've done. State of the county presentation is our next order of business. That would be this May.
Oh, that's I was just gonna speak to Jean's point. That's exactly where we started last year, or last time, and it never went anywhere. We did a salary study across the entire state of Missouri, found that all of the other counties, taking charter out of it, all of the statutory counties except 2 have all their office holders making the same amount, which means they all apparently violate this big constitutional
Excuse me, Mr.
requirement.
Chairman, are we going to adhere to the
Well,
agenda?
like
I'm responding to a comment that was made on the record. If I could finish my comments, please,
The
I would
thing is,
appreciate it.
I mean, respectfully, I would appeal to the chair to say that we have an agenda. I would suggest that there are probably places in there for those comments to be made, and I would suggest that we adhere to the agenda, but that is certainly the call of the chair, not mine.
Well, I believe right now, first thing, let's get out of the way, state of the county. Megan, do you have anything else other than the paper will give you to say about what?
If anyone has any questions or if there's any additional information they would like to see to make any further decisions regarding Mark's motions, I'm more than happy to provide that. I chose, these are the three ones that if any changes within salaries would occur, this is the ones that will be effective. This is as of the end of September. So if you have any other questions or anything you'd like to see additional, let me know. I can have that prepared for next meeting.
Okay.
the salary study from last time, which would be relevant to our discussion here, was that the overwhelming majority, almost all of the counties in Missouri have their office holders, with the exception of the commissioners, paid the same amount, which means they're supposedly violating this big prohibition against midterm pay increases. So that's probably because their commission is voting to allow them to have the COLAs, because that can be done through the commission as well, besides the salary commission. But anyway, the only two counties that were not was this county and Boone. And Boone has all of their office holders on 2 levels, which would be what the way we read the Constitution here about not taking the midterm pay increase. So the one group leapfrogs over the other group leapfrogs. We are the only, the summary is that we are the only statutory county in Missouri that has office holders all over the map. And we agreed last time that that just doesn't make sense. I don't care if we pick the lowest number or the highest number or an average or what. It just doesn't make sense. Commissioners being accepted, and especially with the associate commissioners and all that. So we tried to fix it last time. It was our understanding from the legal counsel that was brought in that that could be problematic. On the other hand, every other county in Missouri is doing it. I don't know where that leaves us, but I agree with you, Gene.
I have a question, Lady, because the first thing you mentioned was that other counties are all doing this and they are probably violating the law. I'm not sure that that's exactly the standard we want to be setting. I mean, am I understanding you correctly? Could you expand on that?
My question is whether our interpretation is correct then. That's what I'm saying. Over 100 counties are doing it this way.
But you just expressed the opinion that you thought it was a violation.
That's what's always been told to us. I have no idea whether or not that's
They
true.
don't get away with it until somebody found ethics complaint against one of the office holders, and then
And going through and talking to some of the treasurers around the state, they put together kind of comparison. This is not by any means all counties, but it does have Buchanan, Boone, Jasper, Greene, Clay, Platte, Cass, which are most of the Class 1 counties on the west side of the state.
Thank you, Tim.
This is, and I was unable to get our assessed valuation filled in on our last column. That's going to give you an idea. A lot of these, and talking to the Buchanan County Treasurer, he said they have, as you can see, a 2017 adjustment already in place for the office holders who are below how you can tell here the associate commissioner and public administrator are below the other people, but in 2017 they will be bumped up to that level, which I think kind of addresses kind of your concern about what kind of a mechanism do we need to put into place to make our salary schedule a little bit more uniform, such as the Buchanan or the Boone or the Greene. They're fairly consistent all the way across, and there's ours where we're all over the place. So I guess what our question is the proper mechanism to get our salary line to look a little bit more consistent than the others. Am I reading?
Yeah.
That's pretty much what we need to do. We need to figure out what the established, how we can do that legally.
Well, see, under the current law, then, we can perhaps establish a more uniform half of the elected office holders by having code enforcement. But of course, everything changes in 2 years, so to get that body to agree to bring the other half up,
Right.
you know.
Well, not only that, I think the 3 office holders we are considering right now all make the same amount. As I understand, legal counsel throughout the years has been that you can give the same raise to all 3. Next time, I don't think the office holders that would be considered all currently make the same amount. And so we were told that you couldn't give unequal raises. So if you set a level, and so some people got more than others or less than others, you couldn't do that. Even if we consented to it, it accrues to the office. So
Excuse me, just for clarification, you said we were told, obviously I wasn't in the room. Could you clarify who told that particular commission?
Ivan Schrader came and spoke to us for, I know it was hours. I'm not sure how many, but it was a lot of hours. And this was his opinion. It was his opinion that we were doing it wrong, that our salaries were wrong because there shouldn't be inequity. Nobody should ever have gotten, everything should always have been done at least in the 2 tiers. Everything should always have been equal for all the office holders. And so the fact that it wasn't some years and others was a problem, but that he thought it would be an issue to give some office holders. He didn't really give us a great answer on how to fix it. So, but this is, Jerry, why I'm concerned about the 2014, because this is what happened 10 years before that, or 11, in 2003. When there's a hiccup, then it creates even further disparity among the same, the groups that we're going to be considering. In other words, and so that's the only reason I'm concerned about it. I just want parity with all the office holders because I think it's fair, and I just want us to be able to consider COLAs, and that when we say COLAs, that the incoming office holder gets the COLAs that accrued to that office during the previous term. It would just be fair, it would be non-political, we would have a 5-minute meeting every year, but we've struggled to try to get this fixed. We just voted
What happened
COLAs.
after, otherwise, like, wham, bam, we were done, there was no confusion, everyone knew what they got, because they got nothing, because we had no money, so that made it real easy.
Well, and that's,
But when you
Yeah.
guys try to find a way to artificially inflate office holder salaries, that is when the problem
I don't
comes.
care if we go to the bottom number. I just want the number to be the same,
When you
starting
say
fresh.
Three people or 3 offices, what are you talking about?
Because right now, we're only considering those that would take office in 2017, which are, refresh my name, Ted, Debbie, and Kathy.
Prosecutor, and then there's prosecutor and sheriff.
And then prosecutor and sheriff,
Yeah,
those are
they're
accepted.
set aside when there's two associates.
In the two.
Two associates.
Okay, so,
So we got a lot.
But there are
I thought we
also,
only had 3. That's
sorry,
why I-
3 that are at the same level right now at one level, and then there's the associate commissioner.
yes, but the other statute that says that they shall be 2,000 less than the presiding, so it kind of takes those out of the mix, because there's only those 3 that are in question. My concern is that, we had county council look at the thing and have a determination, tried to make that adjustment, and now we're saying, no, that's not right. So, if we're talking about we need counsel, and then we don't want to accept counsel's opinion because we want something else, where does that leave this commission? If we make a decision, it can be thwarted as well, because we didn't have
Well, if I hadn't thrown a fit about getting what I believe to be, appears to be a midterm pay raise, you all would still be getting the money, and the last commission, salary commission, would have been, their order or their motion, whatever you want to call it, would have been.
Well, and that wasn't
But-
done smoothly, Katie, I understand that, but the reason you got
Yeah,
a
the
lump is
problem
because
is
it,
HR didn't get the numbers right. Somebody didn't get no one has ever fessed up to say, hey, you're right, I screwed it up. So it'd be nice to know, just have somebody say, hey, I messed it up, I'm really sorry, make it public. But all of a sudden, the next day, your paycheck has increased, you get an extra $600 and some. That's a little fishy. How does HR just have, the wherewithal to go, oh, well, I'm gonna give you an extra paycheck this week, without even bothering to tell you?
Well,
and I understand.
Communication was very bad on that, but if it was an error on their part, it doesn't diminish the fact that the salary commission that was empowered to do that intended for that to happen, and it didn't
I
follow
have no
through.
problem if, supposedly this was discovered months before we got this increase.
I
Why wasn't
discovered
it
it
made
when I took
public
office.
then? And why, it was, to me, it was a very veil of secrecy thing and looked very fishy. If it had been an openly discussed item for months, I would have been much more comfortable about it. Also, if I had received prior notice to receiving the direct deposit into my account. But the bottom line is, as long as there's somebody up here who has, or their family has been the victim of people making unfounded ethics complaints, you are going to have someone who's hyper-vigilant in this county about pay raises. And yes, I'm talking about myself. So I'm
Gotcha.
sorry I walked the boat. I'm
No,
sorry
no,
you're
you're
not
fine,
getting the
Katie.
money. But you know what? And I've got a request into the Ethics Commission to get an ethics opinion from them saying, sure, go ahead and take it. When they say that, I'm fine. I'll be happy to share that with everybody so everybody can get their money. The rest of you want to take your money, that's fine. Just don't be giving it to me. So I'm sorry that I rocked the boat for you guys. But
you're fine to ask
I
the
don't
question, it's
think
legit.
that just because that one was screwed up, and when you read through those minutes, as Jerry said, from an outsider's point of view, it is so convoluted and looks like you guys are trying to jack your salaries up to over $100,000. People are like, what in the heck happened? If we do it, keep it simple, do the typical percentage like it's always been done in the past, or nothing. It's just a really easy way to do it so that there are no questions in 2 years. Everybody gets any raise that they may be entitled to if there is a vote that way. and you can go on down the road. But
And the only
when you
problem-
start wanting to play games with these numbers, we're gonna have problems no matter what. I mean, I just don't see how we should get to play God and go, okay, we're gonna just decide to raise our own salaries, because, oh, well, it's not fair that you make more than I do, and she makes more than I do, and, you know, I just,
You know, something that occurs to me, and Katie's absolutely right on this point. I don't recall in my case, and I suspect none of you, the rest of you have had the experience of somebody pointing a gun to your head and say, run for office. This doesn't happen that way.
right, you don't have that.
We ran for office and we came in fully aware, I would hope, of what the salary we were going to make is. Furthermore, if it was an issue that we didn't think this was a particularly fair way for ourselves to be paid, for instance, the presiding commissioner in Buchanan County does considerably better than myself. If I had an issue, perhaps I should consider moving to Buchanan County and standing for election. That being said, I think that we're not going to be able to resolve, again, this issue. So, I mean, I would move that all offices to the salary commission receive an adjustment to their respective salaries in the amount equal to or average cost of living as the COLA is given to the employees of Clay County for the budget years 2015, 2016. Such adjustments shall not be paid when current office holder in the current term, but shall accrue to the respective offices and shall be paid to the successor office holder following the office's next election. I would put that in form of a motion.
That is the, it is,
Yeah.
we've got copies that we can hand out that was, as I understand your motion, is this?
Same thing. Same thing.
Okay,
Okay.
then can we pass this motion out so other people can look at it, because legal counsel drafted this, and it only deals with formulas. It doesn't deal with numbers, so we don't have to worry about setting that today. I guess I'm speaking in support of your motion.
Oh, so that need to be seconded before that?
That's, I was just gonna say,
Okay.
second.
Okay, I'll make sure.
Now we open for discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to speak on the motion. First of all, this motion was drafted by county council to help eliminate any confusion. Secondly, it matches the statutory language, which is kind of odd language, referring to salary adjustments. And all it does is treats elected officials the same as rank and file employees of Clay County. It's based on a formula. We can deal with all the numbers and all the issues having to do with the numbers later. But all it does is, if any COLA is given to rank and file employees across the board, that elected office holders would receive the same, except, of course, in compliance with law, that it would accrue on paper on an annual basis, but it would never go to that office holder during their term of office. It would only then apply to whoever the successor office holder would be following the next election. And so I think it's a properly drafted motion by our legal counsel. It deals with formulas. We don't have to deal with the numbers issue and get all the weeds about that. And I would support that motion.
My only comment, I would wholeheartedly support it. This is what we've always wanted is COLAs. But without numbers, it'll be very interesting to see if anybody gets this in 2 years, because this is what we did last time. I understand we didn't do it, perfectly, but that's what we voted last time, and we didn't get it.
This is, with all due respect, I looked at the minutes of the last time, and it sounds like the last times differ from my motion in that I believe in the last salary commission was not the sheriff carved out.
Yeah, we were told by legal counsel to do that. But besides the sheriff, I'm talking about COLAs for 2 years, your current year and the next year. That's exactly what we did last
I
time.
think part of what happened the last time was, and as I say, I wasn't here, but I've read through the minutes of that meeting, and convoluted is a kind word for it. I think this is a cleaner, sleeker way to do this. I do, to speak on, I think a point that the reporter was making, and I think she's totally, I think she has some very good points to make. The thing is, what we were doing by establishing the COLA is we are accounting for the inflationary. So, in other words, the money that would be made by the successor office holder would be inflation adjusted. So in my opinion, that kind of holds it harmless. In other words, I don't think I would care to be paid what a presiding judge at the time would be paid in 1960. That's sort of be a little off the beam. But I do think that if failing doing something along these lines, I think I would be supportive of what I believe the recorder is considering offering as another motion, which would be a zero increase. Either one of those does not require that we have numbers right now.
You
What
think?
we, no, it does not require.
I mean, like this.
Right, but it didn't
Correct
happen.
me if I'm wrong. Right, but it didn't happen for a different reason other than, I can't understand this or there's no numbers in it.
The final motion, though, after all the brouhaha, was very similar in
Your
wording
notes of
to
the,
this.
whoever's notes, I'm not saying you took the notes, but those notes of that meeting were horrible. And then you know good and well, if you had to put them into a court of law, a judge would be like, this is a bunch of gunk. It was not clear. This is clear and concise. And again, I'm not going, I'm happy with putting zero, so I'm not supporting of this. I'm just saying that if this, Kevin, since you drafted this, if this mirrors what's been done by the commissions that Craig was on, the one that I was on, all you have to do is take, if you vote, if the commission votes to give the employees a raise in 2015 of 2% in the new next budget, and then they do it again for it's 2016 and 17 or
15, 16.
15,
15 is already out.
So, okay, so we already know what that number is, because it was 3% and 15. Okay, so we know it's gonna be a 3% raise, and then whatever they vote in January, or actually December this year.
December.
I mean, so by the end of the year, we will have a distinct number, so assuming maybe a 2%, we have a 5% easily plugged in number, am I correct?
That is correct.
If you're gonna give yourself a raise, I think this is probably the most foolproof way to do it. Your guys has just had a fluke with HR not knowing, or somebody not knowing how to read your guys' minutes to implement what your intent was.
Well, and I totally agree. My only statement would be for the record, since I know that county council still has a role in helping to interpret what we did in 2013. This was our intent. So if they do this, then 14 needs to be
With
paid.
all due respect, I mean, I've been
I'm just
involved
putting
in-
that on the
I've been
record for
involved
whatever
in
it's
these
worth.
kind of situations before, and intent is all well and good, but it's what you put on paper that goes into law or goes into ordinance. And I want to say thank you to Katie. I realize that she may not necessarily agree with the content of the motion, but I do appreciate that she feels that it's at least been professionally written and presented. And that I think is something we should be striving for, is an increase in professionalism and how we deal with ourselves, particularly how we deal with the public's money. So while I realize that you may not be in agreement with the motion itself, I do appreciate your comments that it seems to be consistent with at least what the statutes instruct us to do.
All right, now, pull us back in here a little bit. I think we've been pretty clear that any more discussion of what happened in 2013 at this point is we're not here, we don't have the legal authority to do anything about that.
And I'd be happy to discuss it with you and try to track down more answers, because we're all in the same boat.
I think we're waiting on legal.
That may come in new business, but for right now, we have a motion.
May I ask you a question, or actually, I'd like to jump in real quick. There was a oral motion made and then a motion handed out. For clarification, would Commissioner Nolte confirm that the motion he's making is the document handed out, in case there are any discrepancies between what he said?
Yes.
Or-
Yes,
What a very
that's a
good-
wonderful idea.
Yes.
Are we all good that the motion you're voting on is in writing in front of you, Commissioner, because it is, there are some slight variations between what you.
But you wouldn't.
Oh, okay, yeah, I
There are some
think,
slight variations.
let me, if you don't mind, I'd like to restate the motion.
Please restate.
I will restate the motion in case I had any mistakes on my part, for just for clarity's sake. I move that all offices subject to the salary commission receive an adjustment for their respective salaries in an amount equal to but not more than the annual cost of living adjustments, as to say COLAs, if any, given to the employees of Clay County for the budget years 2015 and 2016. Such adjustments shall not be paid to any current office holder in their current term, but shall accrue annually to the salary of the respective office holders, and shall be paid as the adjusted annual salary to the successor office holder following the office's next election.
And as a point of clarification, you said office holders instead of offices on here, just so we were running verbatim, one of the offices being
Yes.
verbatim of the written, so I'm just to
Oh, I
make sure
appreciate
that if we're going to deem this as your motion, that
Did I misread it just now?
Just one.
you did.
I'm
Just
sorry.
one.
It accrues to the office, not the office holder,
Oh, I'm
which is
sorry.
kind of a big difference.
Yeah, I'm sorry, if I could make that correction, so it was in respective offices and shall be paid out. I appreciate the correction, sometimes you get reading along and
We're getting technical here, so I'm just.
no, I appreciate that, well, as I say, I mean, I want to do things as professional as possible and be spot on. Appreciate the observation. Okay.
Before Paul, since I was not recognized for discussion before, I would like to ask a question. The term of office is 4 years. There's cost of living that is accrued other than 2015 and 16. Should not 13 and 14 be considered in those offices that are taking for the next term?
One's for the, if I may. Those were dealt with in 2013. The way we do it is every other year we deal with all the offices for that 2-year period, not only the offices coming up next for a 4-year period.
But that's not in accordance with the statute, is it?
No,
We're
it is.
talking about what's going to be in the next term.
Well, you're going to, the adjustment will be for the next term for certain office holders, but it's for everyone's next term.
So, like,
So I'm not
So the
this time,
accrual
so
for
I-
14 that was not recognized in the 15 budget, which is under question now,
Yes.
may or may not accrue to this next set of offices because we don't have a determination on that yet.
Correct.
So we really don't have a number and don't have a plan because that one was questioned last time. And if it was questioned from that one, then it can't be in this next one.
Especially since COLAs are a percentage, you need to know the number from the previous year in order to apply the percentage. I do
We
believe it
do,
compounds.
but the application, the actual number generated, I don't know, we need to generate at this particular meeting. I believe that would be generated subsequently.
But HR will not be able to do it on their own in the future, is all. I'm fine with the motion, but they will not be able to do it, because they're not doing it right now without
Well,
direction.
and even with county council direction, this is still in question. So, that calls into question this whole thing, and what are we doing? If we can't have it going forward, are we waiting for this opinion? How long are we gonna wait? We have an obligation that we can continue and recess this meeting, but we have to have it done by December 15th.
I don't, okay, you know what, why not? Turns out we don't get any raise for those last 2 years, big deal. I mean, it doesn't make any difference what happens at the last meeting with those years. We're talking about these 2 years here, and those 2 years are gonna have to sort themselves out later, and whatever it is, and then this goes on, and that number's computed. I mean,
Mr.
that's,
Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I agree with what the clerk just stated, but I do have an idea, once we dispose of this motion, how some of us members here may give direction, because I'm noting that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us around this table who were present during the 2013, is that right? So I think I might have an idea how that we can at least give some direction of what the intent was, but
Let's
as a
dispose
point
of
of
this
order,
motion
I
first.
think we need to dispose of this motion first, so am I correct? Commissioner Nolte has made the motion. Did you just restate your motion so that my
did.
second still applies?
I believe it would be, is that correct?
Okay, so my second still, where do I second it? And I don't want to put on anybody else has anything to say, but otherwise I'm getting ready to call a motion. Okay, I move the previous question.
So, got a motion and a second, clarification and a second, and now call for question, correct? Is that where we are? Okay. Madam Clerk?
Keith Porter.
Jerry, I commend you for making a motion that doesn't unnecessarily raise, office holder salaries artificially misleading. But I wouldn't be happy with no raise at also before I have to vote.
Understood.
Megan Thompson. I'm gonna second with Katie on this. I prefer if we had no increase in salaries this year, so I'm gonna vote no on that as well. Jerry Nolte,
Yes.
Luann Ridgway,
Yes.
Jean Owen,
No.
Lydia McAvoy,
Yes.
Ted Griggs.
So
Are we gonna abstain out of this?
I'm going to abstain unless we get a tiebreaker, I guess.
You pass and then come back to it here.
Sounds
Okay.
good. Carolyn Castle.
Because I have still concerns on the previous one and how it goes forward, and that there's been no resolution to that, and I have no confidence that this particular motion will be carried out any better than the 2013 commission motion, I vote no.
Debbie Nguyen.
Yes.
Well, 2 years ago, I would have been no, and I'm going to go ahead and go with no again. I apologize to those that are for it, but I still think that we need to be taking care of our workers before elected officials attempt are hurting themselves by the race. That's why I get a lot of workers working very cheap in the county. And until that's kind of moved up, I can't see it myself.
Motion carries.
That motion is failed. I have a motion because we're still waiting for clarification. Because the second opinion regarding the COLAs may affect the calculations of the current salary commission or committee, I move that we recess until that opinion is received. The statute requires a final report by December 15th, and the next meeting of this should be set accordingly.
Motion has been made to basically recess. I think we get all of it down.
Did you,
Second.
is there a motion to recess to a date certain?
Until the second opinion has come through. Because that's what is holding up what the previous intent was and holding back the enactment of that intent.
No, that had not been a second yet.
So we have to have a second for discussion, right?
A second.
Okay.
I think bad things happen when you recess a meeting and drag it out, as proven by the last meeting.
I'd also like to, I would like to support Katie's point on this. I think it distinctly feels like we're kicking the can down the road. Been involved in some of these sort of discussions in the State House, and it's never a pleasant thing to discuss. But I would suggest that we remove the Band-Aid quickly as opposed to pull it off slowly and painfully and drag this thing out. Furthermore, I would suggest that any decision made by this body today can in fact be revisited up until I believe it's December 15th of this year. So if information comes back to where we need to reconsider any motions, any actions we take today, we certainly have the latitude to do so. And in fact, I think failing the proposition that we institute a COLA for the next 2 years, my suggestion would be that for simplicity's sake, we adopt Katie's thought of a 0% increase. What that does is with a 0% increase, we don't have to wait around for numbers. It is what it is, and there's no calculation to make. A 0% increase is obviously no change whatsoever in status quo. So I don't know if Katie's going to want to make that motion, but I think that we don't. I mean after we dispose of this, but I would suggest that we not recess and not kick the can down the road, but actually take responsibility, as opposed to how we did it 2 years ago. So I would urge the body to not vote for the motion to recess.
I'd be interested in hearing Commissioner Ridgway's thoughts, because she would have a point that we have so many people from the lot. So I just didn't know what,
Actually,
before I vote either way, I'm just interested in hearing it.
what I was going to suggest when the order of business came to that, because we have 5 people here, I think that had we had this wording in front of us in 2013, that's what would have been adopted. And I think that regardless of whether the five of us who are here at this table that were at the 2013 salary commission voted for it or against it, that the wording that Commissioner Nolte made earlier in his motion was the intent of the 2013 salary commission. Having said that, what I had planned to do under new business was to say that it was the intent of those who were at the table, regardless of whether they voted for it or not, that the wording of this year's motion was the intent of the wording of the 2013 salary commission. Because we have enough members here that we have the institutional memory that we could make a valid statement having to do with that. And the memory of five people from just a couple of years ago, I think would help with the interpretation now that we have a properly drafted legal motion having to do with that. So that's really what I was going to do. Had that motion passed, I was going to say, okay, now under new business, those of us who were there, can we agree, whether or not you voted for it, that this language was the intent of the 2013 salary commission vote? And that way, I think we go a long way toward giving clarification to any legal counsel or any court or anybody who might do that, because I was here, you were there, the collector was there, I as Eastern District Commissioner was there, the public administrator was there.
I have a question on more of a point of order, and that would be this. If the motion to adjourn were adopted, does that not cut that we would then adjourn this meeting, and discussing this under new business at this particular meeting would not be an option? So you would in fact not be able to discuss that under new business because we would in fact adjourn. Is that not correct?
I moved to recess, which is to go forward when you said we have until the 15th to make decisions. If we adjourn from this meeting, we are done. That is why
So how long are you
recess.
planning to recess for?
Well, I was hoping that the opinion would be in place. We can go ahead and set another meeting for next Wednesday if that works with everyone. And be specific about that, and I would amend my motion to do so. I believe that would be November the 3rd.
Do you have, is there a second part for amended motion?
Is November the 3rd correct? The
I
correct
think,
date? Next Wednesday, is that next, at 10 o'clock, is that the 3rd?
November, the next
The
Wednesday.
fourth? Okay, so I would make an amendment to recess till November the 4th at 10 o'clock.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and an amendment. Does the amendment need a second?
Yes.
I second.
A second on that.
What, you keep referencing a legal opinion. Who are you talking to?
And that's kind of my question, because
Who are you expecting an opinion from?
I like that. I think we need to get a procedure before we recess. We need to decide on the procedure of what we're actually going to do between now and then.
Who's being sought? Because I also understood there was one being sought when they stopped our.
I see one from the Missouri Ethics Commission to get reassurance that if somebody filed an ethics complaint alleging it's a pay raise, that they're not gonna come after me since I didn't do it.
You
So
know, time
beyond
frame,
that,
I would
who knows,
be
it's
very
an ethics
interested.
commission, there's really, no urgency to it for them, so. All I know is they have actually received it because they signed the return receipt green card, but it's not like they've said, oh yeah, we're working on this, expect an opinion, and they only meet like every so often, so.
You probably couldn't have told HR to stop doing it. So whoever told HR to stop doing it was under the understanding that they were seeking a legal opinion. I don't know.
I
if
don't
that-
know, I
don't
just
know
said,
who
do
that came
not give
from.
me any more money, and that
Right.
was complied with.
And that's
And
for you,
I'm
right.
thankful that they complied with that, so beyond that, that's again, I feel like I've been kept very in the dark on this, which is why I'm so suspicious.
Why December 4th?
Why did you say December or November?
November.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, November.
Yeah, I guess I'm not real sure that any miracle is gonna happen in a week, so again, I don't feel that it's important what happens about the the 2013, 2014 years, because they're separate. This is 2015, 2016, and it doesn't really matter what happens there. This is what we're here to vote on, so that's why I don't think that we should recess, because It doesn't matter, you're on these 2 years, 15 and 16 only.
Could I ask legal counsel a quick question? Jerry made the point that we may be able to reopen up to December 15th. So if we chose not to recess and to maybe make the note for the record as Commissioner Ridgway recommended, which I think is a great idea, and then we go ahead and adjourn because we think we're done, and then we are able to get some sort of, maybe your ethics opinion comes through or some other additional information, would we be able to reopen?
No, I've been involved in a commission where we did recess with the expectation that we were going to continue the COLAs because I made the motion, said to keep it the same, and the intent was that those COLAs would accrue. But that was not the interpretation. We tried to meet again, and we were called foul on that. So, no, I think we have to recess if there's going to be any opportunity.
Once again, I would repeat my question, why November 4, what is your expectation that there will be some resolution or information by November 4? What is the basis of that particular date, and why not November 5th, 6th, or whatever?
It can be anywhere between now and the 15th of
But you
December.
picked that date, so I'm wondering why that is.
Is that incorrect that there is another opinion out there, or the search for another opinion regarding what happened in the prior commission?
It is fair to say that I am working with outside counsel. That's probably, at least at this point, given the manner in which it's being handled, it's probably fair to leave it at that. We can meet until December 15th. I guess, and if I may, I guess I just want to posit a question. It seems to me that the majority today was to vote for no increase. So I guess I'm not sure how that changes between now and next week. If the issue is no increase, that's the motion.
My vote would change. I predicated my vote on the fact that we were not clear on the previous one. So my vote would change, and that would change the complexion of this motion and the outcome of this motion.
For you, if the meeting is recessed, will the next meeting, meeting of the people who are present today, or does that
Sour commission is whoever is on the sour commission.
whoever shows up
Whoever shows up.
today?
Right now, aren't.
So you have
you
to,
know,
that's
previous-
it, you don't turn out to come today, so.
If you get a do-over, if you recess it, there's another meeting, it's essentially a do-over. Right.
So basically, you'll have a big risk of throwing out everything that's been done today. Having all the same arguments yet again, which is a big waste of time.
Exactly.
We'll call the question.
The question that is after what I had stated, if we get the direction that the intent is exactly what Commissioner Nolte's motion was from 2013, from the 5 members who were there. Does that make a difference to how you would vote today on the motion?
I still want to have the confidence level that this in fact will be carried out by HR and the commission staff would do that, because it didn't happen last time.
Actually, my understanding, the question's been called. I do take your point. My motion's made and defeated. It's a dead issue as far as I'm concerned now. So I believe, not to usurp the chair, but I believe Katie had a previous question.
We have a call on the question. We need a second.
Let's
Your motion.
On your motion.
My motion was to amend it to have a date certain meeting on 11/4 at 10 o'clock.
The motion was to recess this meeting until 11 or 10 o'clock.
Yes.
In this place,
And I
in
would,
this room.
is that incorporating an amendment? I know there was an amendment voiced. I don't remember what the amendment was.
It was regarding the date.
Date.
Yes.
The
The original did not have a date.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion has been called.
Kenny Porter,
No.
Megan Thompson, no. Jerry Nolte,
No.
Leland Ridgway,
No.
Gene Owen,
Yes.
Lydia McAvoy,
No.
Ted Graves, hold on to you. Carol McCaslin,
Yes.
Debbie Glenn.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Motion fails.
What was the number?
which means the meeting is still open right now,
Right.
right? That's why that's the reason I voted. So we still have the option to consider it again.
Still open and new business.
So I would move that we do not have any COLAs or raise of any type for the years 2015 and 16. So I could take the council approved language here and say I move that all officers subject to the salary commission receive no adjustment to their respective salaries.
I actually wrote alternative motions.
Okay.
You might take a look and see if you were okay with that.
All right, start the motion over. I move that all offices subject to the salary commission receive no adjustment to their respective salaries for the budget years 2015 and 16.
I have some extra copies of this one. I didn't make it a full complement.
I would second the motion.
There's a motion and second.
I just have a question.
Discussion.
If we don't vote an increase, then we didn't vote an increase. So I'd be really curious, like if this motion fails, that we almost muddy the waters. Whereas right now, though, it's clear that we do not get COLAs, and we didn't vote any other increase, so we already have not voted an increase. So that's my only, I see this motion as superfluous.
I don't know how, but it actually takes a vote and.
The way I see it right now, we've actually decided nothing.
Right, well,
Because we.
right, and by deciding nothing, we don't get an
There's
increase.
a difference between deciding nothing and moving and voting to accept nothing.
There we go, there we go.
Practically speaking, I don't. I agree with
As a
you.
lawyer, you've got to agree with me on
Yeah.
that.
Except that, no, I think that salary office holders only get increases by affirmative action. So, and I don't mean affirmative action in its traditional sense, by us taking action. So I would agree with you that there are times when that could matter, but I think we've already,
So.
I just don't want to muddy the waters.
If you adjourn, then you get nothing, was that it? If-
My interpretation would be if you move to adjourn at this point, if that happens, no affirmative action would occur, there would be no increases.
I would
My
But
preference would be an
To
affirmative
have
vote.
a motion.
My preference would be to have a
Do I
very
have a
clear
second for
vote.
my motion?
you did.
Yes, we
Yes,
have a
thanks.
motion and
Please call
second.
the question.
And we have called the question.
You ready? All right. Katie Porter.
Yes.
Dave Thompson. Yes. Jerry Nolte.
Yes?
Leland Ridgway. Gene Owen.
No.
Lydia McAvoy.
No.
Carol McCaslin.
No.
Debbie Gwynn.
No.
Got 3 to 5. Okay.
So that leaves us where?
There's nothing.
The same place we were.
I
I
didn't
didn't
have a
vote.
question for council. If we're only talking, the original motion that was for 15 and 16,
Yes.
when you said this moves in 2-year increments versus the 4-year of the term, the 2 previous years being 13 and 14
Yes.
would go ahead because they were voted on last time. Is that what your opinion is?
This vote would not impact the vote that occurred in 2013 salary commission.
So the salary commission, those 2 years of COLAs, if any, would then go to these next offices.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
The 2 years that were addressed in the previous salary commission of 13 and 14 then would accrue to the next set of offices.
That is my interpretation.
Yes, and your interpretation didn't hold water last time, which is why I'm so concerned about this.
When you mean last
I'd like
time,
to
you mean
make a comment
2003.
and-
No, no, because of the question and the way it was handled and the way the computation was done and not put in the current, the ones that started in 2015.
Question or comment that I have in the body, and that is, okay, so COLAs are not acceptable, 0 increase is not acceptable. Does somebody have a plan, or are we just gonna kick this can down the road and pretend the problem doesn't exist?
By not giving raises, we didn't give raises.
You know what? Since my motion of 0 wouldn't pass, I'd much rather have your solution than some other convoluted thing that's gonna end up getting thrown out.
Yours is
Did you vote
clear.
before?
I voted no on yours because I wanted no. I wanted none.
What question I have, I guess a point of procedure, and that is, if a person who voted with the prevailing on our first motion, go ahead and vote, could they not revisit and re-raise the issue?
I think you have two motions of the, I just have three motions of the bill. There are two ways to do it.
I just
A
wasn't-
member in the prevailing side of the motion can always ask to reconsider as such. Since you haven't actually passed anything, I think anybody can raise a random motion, and if it happens to be identical to the previous motion, so be it.
That's all he said, that's better. We're gonna share this,
So, you can get there two different ways, but that's obviously up to you. Since nothing is passed, I think you can just renew, you can just renew the motion.
Just renew the motion.
You would just say, I'm gonna move this
So
again.
if we move to adjourn,
Yep.
same thing effect.
Before that happens, I would like to hear further from Commissioner Ridgway if possible.
Well, I was gonna say, wait a minute, I can't, I wanna follow the agenda, okay? And I can't ask the clarifying issue concerning percentages until we move beyond this. On the point of Commissioner Nolte's original motion, I think it makes it very clean if, following our procedures and Robert's Rules of Order, if, for example, Carol Castle, she voted on the prevailing side, which was no. Having voted on the prevailing side, that she makes a motion to reconsider the vote of Commissioner Nolte's.
But I understood from the counselor that because the motion failed, that we had an option, we could go either way, of either renewing that or creating a new but identical.
As far as I'm concerned, I'm good with that. I just want to make sure that we have a parliamentarian addressing that issue. So is it then your intent to restate and renew your motion?
I've done it once, I don't see any reason to reach you that cabbage twice. If someone wants to go ahead and renew that motion, that's fine with me. But to tell you the truth, the body rejected my motion. That's something lacking in my personality, I don't know. If someone else cares to renew a motion identical to mine, obviously I would be certainly supportive of that, and I remain supportive of the motion I made.
Because of further
May I jump in with just a thought?
Okay.
Okay. Under the statute, the salary commission is supposed to issue a report of compensation by December 15th. I don't know that that was actually done last year in a way that I think works with the statute. I know there are concerns about, well, how do we know this gets implemented? I will tell you that it is, whatever you do, and I don't care what you do, whatever you do, will be a report of compensation will be created with specific numbers, and will be signed off on, it'll be circulated to the salary commission and vote. And so you will see a document before December 15th that you will look at and see whatever you've done today, where you ultimately vote on, how it translates to actual salary dollars for those offices in the future.
But the motion talks about the COLAs for 2015 and 16, and those 2016 budget COLAs will not be set in time for a report of compensation on December the 15th of 2015.
They actually may, but if they're not, there'll be an asterisk to say to be established with the budget to be approved, and then I'll have a second document.
Okay, so it will take into
It will
account.
have, yes, it
Because
will
I think
absolutely take into
that is
effect.
where the failing of this last one was, not taking that into account. And that's my real concern, is that we be very concise about this. So with that information, I would move that we go back to the previous motion. I don't know if you want to restate it again, the previous motion that was voted on.
Yeah, that's just to make sure we cover
Okay.
our bases.
What was the motion? I move that all offices subject to the salary commission receive an adjustment to their respective salaries in an amount equal to, but not more than, the annual cost of living adjustments, COLAs, if any, given to the employees of Clay County for the budget years 2015 and 2016. Such adjustments shall not be made to any current office, paid to any current office holder in their current term, but shall accrue annually to the salary of the respective offices, and shall be paid as the adjusted annual salary to the successor office holder following the office's next election.
There's the motion, we have a second.
I'll second again.
Okay.
Second question at a time.
I do not understand the conversation that you and Carol just had and what it is that is new information that made her change her mind.
Well, I thought I heard that her concern was, how do we know if we vote on this, it actually gets implemented? What I don't think happened last time is that the salary commission actually signed off on the report of compensation, they only individuals did. And I think the statute would suggest that the salary commission do that. It would be my.
So it's the document that makes you feel better, or what?
Yes, because the document spells it out, and in particular, when I asked, the 2016 would not be set at the time that the document is due by December 15th. He said there would be an asterisk and that would be taken into account, which was the problem.
Right.
The problem from the 2013, which has driven my objections to the earlier times as well.
So this report of compensation will be signed off on by every member that was here?
I think that's the right way to do
I
it.
guess if you vote yes, or how are you gonna do it to where, like, you know, if I don't vote for something and it passes, I obviously don't wanna sign a document or, you know, something. I don't mind it documenting, are you gonna document everybody's vote on it? Like, here's the motion, here's the vote, and then here's the result of the.
The minutes will have the votes, yes or no.
Right, but the minutes were kind of like the whole, like, okay, well, do we get, who's gonna do the minutes? Are we all gonna sign off on the minutes? Are the minutes gonna be part of the compensation letter or whatever?
I'm happy to write that, however, this body's comfortable. I'm not gonna write it in such a way to put somebody who voted no in the position that they feel like they're voting yes
I
for
just
that
think,
document.
like,
I can actually-
basically should just do, okay, here's the motion, here's the roll call, how people voted, here's the net effect of what's happening.
Yeah, and I think that's, I'm
And
fine.
we all get emailed the same thing, and we all can sign if we choose, and we can all choose not to sign. Is that?
Well, and what I kind of, what I'm toying with is maybe working with the clerk's office to actually have the minutes signed off on as well. Because what I do want is everyone who's voted to at least acknowledge that what the minutes say is what happened. You don't have to agree to the result necessarily, but at least just acknowledge this is what we did. And then the report of compensation being an attachment to that. So you're not, if you vote no, for example, you're not going to say, I agree with this increase. But I would like you to at least acknowledge this is what the body, this is what the body did.
Okay.
This, just FYI, this is Green Counties, and they have the motion, and then they have a roll call vote. So if you had a no vote, you could be on there, but you could still, that's all not yet have. But that way, you know, you're, just like you do minutes from a meeting, you may not have voted for everything in the affirmative on that, but you are verifying that, yeah, this is what happened.
And I have an interesting question for county council. Well, I don't know if the question is interesting. It's interesting to me. I have a question.
So really, we would just be adding the signatures of everybody and not just the chair.
But Kevin, the motion.
As long as
Councilwoman, as a technical matter, when you prepare this report of compensation, are you
With
going
the clerk's office, yes.
to do salary numbers that are going to be paid to the office?
It is my intent.
You can't, because.
No,
That's my question.
I-
Are you going to compound it based on the 14 being paid? Because
I
that is your
expect
opinion
that,
that it should be.
I expect that will be resolved well before then. In fact, I think that's when it has to be resolved by my, I think it's, the cleanest thing to do is to put as specific as we can be on numbers, because to be honest, this is your decision, it's not HR's decision. I would prefer HR not be in a position of trying to interpret.
Well, who's in for
what you
HR
did.
then? 'Cause I mean, like, this is the whole thing, it's
They're
like,
commissioners.
everyone's, like, somebody screwed up, and no one will admit they screwed up. I think we, as a collective body, are owed somebody stepping up and saying, I screwed up, I'm really sorry, because this is now affecting everybody's livelihood.
The former clerk is no longer here. I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just mentioning that the person that took the minutes of that meeting is no longer in office. And some responsibility may be borne by the record
Starts
itself.
there, but the computation of the numbers itself, I don't think she did the computation. of the numbers that we ended up determining what our paychecks are.
Well,
Right.
That's the
it's
problem.
been-
Let
And
me
it's
jump in.
also been
That
stated.
was the entire problem. I don't want to get too far off on this rabbit hole. The entire problem last year, 2014, is no one would make that call. That's why the whole issue. That's enough I'm gonna say about it. That's the reason. No one would say, here are the numbers.
Well, it's just scary because somebody had to direct HR to put the money in and give me a check or stop putting the money in.
Also
Which
something-
is why
something
I think
about-
the report of compensation is
Is
so important this year, that you guys all sign off on. So
I
it's
was-
not left to the interpretation of anybody.
There were numbers that were created last time, but we closed the salary commission about 4 or 5 days, I'd have to look at the exact record, before the COLA was officially voted. Plus, there were new commissioners that had the opportunity to reopen the budget. So we could not have included in that report of compensation, we only included the 13. And we thought the motion was clear that the 14 would be added, and since it's not in the numbers, they went by the numbers. That's why it's important that we create numbers this time, but we need to create like a blank column saying, and this is what shall be paid in the future, because what happened is we created the column with the information we had, and that's what they stuck with. And they've refused to or I'm not saying they refused, but nobody has at this point extrapolated and taken that same logic to the next year and created their own
It's just-
numbers.
It's somebody's job to know what everybody in this county makes, and I just don't understand how this just, we don't know who did it, and got no apology and nothing, I just think
Well,
it's crazy.
I think, we need to draw a line and move forward at some point. Obviously, there was a lot of confusion from the minutes of the meeting and whatever. Hopefully, we'll come to a resolution of that because it does affect things going forward and our ability to make sure that we've done it well this time so that there isn't those questions in the future, I think is all we can do. And, we just need to go forward, fix it, go forward. We don't need to look back and blame, point fingers, or anybody that doesn't get us anywhere. We need to draw the line, fix it, go forward, and go on.
Mr. Chairman, I approve this question.
There we go. That's what I was looking for. Call the question. All right.
Katie Porter,
No,
Diane Thompson, no. Jerry Nolte,
Yes?
Lynn Ridgway,
Yes.
Gene Owen,
No.
Lydia McAvoy,
Yes.
Carol McCaslin,
Yes.
Debbie Gwen,
yes.
5-4.
I agree, motion passes. Is that right?
Yes.
I do need a
How
adjournment.
many should spend?
Oh, before I make the motion to adjourn, I have to live up to what I said I was going to do.
We've got another agenda thing.
Well, there isn't, new business is what we just did.
Yeah. we
I
just-
mean, that's why,
There's additional new business.
Okay, before she makes before she does that, I do want to live up to what I said I was going to do. And it doesn't apply to everybody around this table, because not everybody around the table was here for the 2013. But for the sake of clarification, and for the sake of institutional memory and intent of those members who were there, is it correct that had the motion been made in 2013 that all offices subject to the salary commission receive an adjustment to the respective salaries in an amount equal to, but not more than, the annual cost of living adjustment, if any, given to the employees of Clay County for the budget years 2013 and 2014. Such adjustments shall not be paid to any current office holder in their current term, but shall accrue annually to the salary of the respective offices and shall be paid as the adjusted annual salary to the successor office holder following the office's next election. If that had been the motion, as you were present, whether you voted for it or not, is it your intent is it your statement that that's what the intent of the former salary commission was? Collector McAvoy, you were there. Was that your intent?
Absolutely.
I was there, that was my intent. Public Administrator Gwen, you were there, was that your intent?
It was.
Commissioner Owen, you were there. Is it your understanding that that was the intent of the
Yes,
salary?
that was the intent of the commission. I would
Yes.
vote no for it.
Correct, but you do agree that that was the intent, even if you would have voted no? Okay. And around this table, the only other person who was there, whether you would have voted for it or not, is Treasurer Graves.
That I do believe was the intent of the group, yes.
Is there anyone else around this table who was present at the salary commission during 2013 that wasn't, that I didn't make that inquiry to? Saying no one. Okay.
Is there 5 names?
5 names.
I've got yes to McAvoy, Ridgway, Cohen, William, Wells.
And those were the only ones around this table, and not stating that they would have voted for it, but only stating that that was their intent for direction as featured. Okay, I looked up to my obligation, that's what I said I would do.
I think to do an affidavit from people that were on the salary commission to the prior, I mean, like to have something in writing. I mean, it would be nice, you know, what you did is great, I mean, but boy, it sure would be nice to have some kind of affidavit if somebody comes after one of us and say, look, this is what they said. Also, it would be nice to get an affidavit from HR or somebody that said, look, this extra money is not a midterm pay raise. Like, I don't even know, like, did they fill out a change form or how, you know, I've seen no paperwork. So if we had a paper trail of people acknowledging this is not a midterm pay raise, this is a clerical error we're trying to fix, this was our intent, you know.
I actually completed a change of status form for my own office, which is not being followed. Yes, I did, because, I didn't take office until March, you guys did in January, so I didn't know there was a problem. Until I took office in March and realized it, and so I filled out a change of status form because they said they didn't want to do the math themselves, so I did it for my office. But anyway, if we're going to do an affidavit, I want to clarify for the record that that is the final motion. That on the very last day, the very last thing before we adjourned, there were many other motions that either failed or fell by the wayside. So I do want to make that clear that that is not the only,
Final motion.
but that is the final motion that carried, yes.
And the agreement of the 5 that were on that committee, that whether they voted in the affirmative or not, that was the intent.
That was the final result. We tried several other things, admittedly. They all failed or fell by the wayside, and that was
Just
the,
randomly think that is the worrisome.
I did my change of
I have no
status.
doubt that that was your guys' intent. I mean, I think, you know, if you've been around this at all, you can tell by reading it, even though it is very convoluted, what the intent was, but.
Commissioner,
Just
do we
leave it.
need to do anything in the form of a motion about the affidavits or anything?
I don't think you can. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
think
that's
this
from
is-
the commission, that
this
is
is
their duties
This
done.
is kind of just trying to help fix a problem of which they play a very minor role in.
Well, unless each of you individually want to make a statement, I don't know, since there is, that commission does not exist anymore.
I think we completely what we were confident to take up. Any further action would be beyond our scope.
And then we adjourn.
First, I'm going to call one more time. Is there any more new business for this commission?
Just a question to council, if we're going to do this reported compensation, if we adjourn now, is that a problem, or that's just following up with like minutes of the meeting? Okay, so an adjournment would be okay to still do the
Take a
compensation.
motion for adjournment then.
Third time, I mean, we adjourn.
Third time's a charm.
Do we need a second?
I said.
Second. Discussion? Call the question.
Discussion.
Yes, sorry.
My voice broke.
Porter,
Yes.
Thompson, yes. Nolte,
Yes.
Ridgway,
Yes.
Owen,
Yes.
McAvoy,
Yes.
Graves,
You? Yes.
Victoria,
Yeah, we're gonna be the
I was like,
tiebreaker.
what?
Johnson,
Yes, the only time we can agree.
Vivian,
Yes, unanimous